ahead with our panel discussion 1. And for this, I would like to request our moderator, Mr. Ankit Sharma, Senior Director, Solution Engineering from Cyber Inc., to kindly come on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, can we have a huge round of applause for Mr. Ankit Sharma? Now I would like to invite our panelists on stage. The first one is Mr. Balaji Kapsikar, Head of Technology and Cyber Risk, Funding Society, Singapore. Can we have a huge round of applause? A little more energy, come on. Would like to request Mr. Beenu Arora, Co-founder and CEO, Cyber Inc., to kindly come on stage. Can we have a huge round of applause for Mr. Beenu Arora, everyone? Would like to request Colonel Kapil Jaiswal, Sir, Director, Research, Integrated Headquarter in Ministry of Defence and Government of India. A little more energy, yes, of course. Let's motivate each other. And the last panelist is Dr. Mahesh Juttiyavar, Global CIO, Master, to kindly come on stage. So now, together, huge round of applause for our panelists and the moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, this panel discussion will be on the topic Beyond the Surface, Navigating the Deep and Dark Web for Threat Intelligence.
Coming, introductions are already done, right? So I'll not, give more time to that. So today's panel discussion is mostly to dwell into what is happening outside of your surface, right? And it is becoming very imperative, very important to know the unknowns as well. You guys are managing everything inside your parameter very well, right? But you have a sort of blind spot of anything that is happening outside of your firewall, right? So with that, I would like to also, gain some insight from the industry stalwarts like, Mr. Kapil, Mr. Balaji, Mr. Kapil, Beenu, and Mr. Mahesh. So without, wasting any more time, I will directly like to start the session by asking a very important question, which I am also very interested in, Mr. Kapil, that, with everything happening across the globe, geopolitical tension and everything, right? I'm sure that, armed forces, Ministry of Defense, you guys are keeping a very, very close eye on what is happening in dark web and everything, right? So how does this kind of intel actually helps you in decision making? This kind of thing actually helps you in some kind of a situational awareness. So just want to know more about that.
Okay. So the connectivity between the threat perception, emerging threat on the main web and its linkages down deep below into the dark web, it's not that it's becoming, I'll say, coming more in open now and it's more being discussed. But as far as the perspective from the government was concerned, it's around 5 years down below. People realize this is the thing which is going to trouble us in future. Luckily, as far as the country is concerned, there was a certain amount of effort and dedicated resources were placed into this field. And over a period of time, the realization has come that connecting the dots from the dark web and ability to correlate them and corroborate them with the things which are happening outside, it is giving us dividend. Is it an easy job? No, it's a very difficult job. The dark web is not something which is properly documented. The architectures are fluctuating. Your organizations or the websites or the thing which have become a center of attraction for some time, one fine day they simply vanish. They come up in a different avatar at different places. It's an evolving challenge, and to technology stack which requires to handle this also has to keep evolving. Now what happens with the solutions, technical solutions which are available from the the industry side? They have a particular focus. They are focused on a company. They are focused on a particular specific firm. The basic primary motivation is preservation of the reputation, brand value, and the financial assets of that firm. So the complete exploration of the dark web by the solutions which are generically available, they focus on the analyzing the existing data in correlation with a specific form and with a specific threat emerging for them. Whereas once we consider at a national level or a state level, the perception and the priorities are slightly different. We look at all the threats which are likely to emerge and which can first attract threats to any of our critical infrastructure, and secondly, it may move down to from the critical infrastructure to our financial space. So if you remember this year only, the list of the critical infrastructure has now started, it has included now the banks like ICICI and HDFC. These are the critical banking sector of our country. So the focus of presently the companies is generally on that side. Now that particular focus doesn't lend itself to scale up to the requirement of the government organizations or the government policies or the government security requirements. So that is where we are slightly different from what the thing is being done. The technology stack which gets developed is slightly different, and the challenges which we find is slightly bigger.
Thank you. So, Beenu, would you like to add, because I know you have worked with the government agencies as well earlier, right? So do you like to add anything on that? And do you feel that, monitoring dark web also offers a proactive way of, threat detection?
I mean, the dark web has been around for more than 30 years. I mean, this was actually created by one of the agencies in the US for secure communication. And then the entire spectrum got changed. Today, I think, people generally started using the different P2P networks more from a anonymity and privacy related use cases. But then obviously, cyber criminals are also want the same thing. They want to be behind the curtain and do whatever they want they can. So in the context, what we learned, and this is again, we're talking about early 2000. Even those days, there were hundreds of terabytes of data which was sitting up there, and very limited research was done at that time to understand or navigate how complex or how concerning that might be. But I think in the last 7 to 8 years, especially, I think, and predominantly because of a lot of investments which are also coming from venture capitalists and private equity firms, people are becoming more interested to understand how big and wide that problem really is. And one of the reasons why organizations like Cyber exist in the market, because what we have found is that there's tens of petabytes of data which is sitting out there, and it's not just the data which is sitting out there, but I think there's a whole ecosystem which has been sitting down there, all the way from selling or trafficking abuse materials or activities, all the way hacker for hire or crime for hire, all those different services which are fully commercialized at this point in time. And those are increasingly not just impacting the private sector or some of the critical sectors, like especially critical infrastructure, but I think broadly speaking, they're also creating a big hole in the economies of the emerging nations, including India for the matter. Many countries are going through a lot of transformations, especially in the digital space, especially what's happening in India for the last 10 years. And I think those are the transformations which many of the criminals are keeping an eye. More importantly, they are interested how they can sabotage some of the operations and get the country back on where they were 20 years ago. And that's not just geopolitically motivated. I think it's also financially, sometimes ideology-based activities. India is a very, it's a very interesting location, surrounded by many other countries who are, some of them are friendly, some of them not so much. I think this whole, the current situation where the country is sitting in, surrounded by frenemies or enemies or maybe some allies, I think it requires again a change of thought process on how to understand the information flow, both in the public and the private sector, but more importantly, how collaborations between the private sector and the public sector can happen seamlessly in order to ultimately defend not just the economy, but also make the entire region attractive for the investments, from overseas. So I think monitoring the dark web, for that matter, I think it's already become, to be honest. I mean, many of the organizations, if not most, have already taken proactive steps to keep an eye what's happening out, in those behind the curtains. And there are, some amazing technology solutions out there. And I think this is the need of the hour. For the next 3 years, I don't think anything is going to change much, especially from a threat activity perspective. Not just the fact that they're going to become more frequent and maybe a bit more complex with the AI. But yeah, I mean, this is the imminent need of the hour as far as I'm seeing it.
Sure. So I have a question for Mr. Balaji, right? So in the event of discovering a potential threat, a potential breach, what are the strategies? Because financial services is the most lucrative sectors for these bad guys, right? I'm sure you guys are getting a lot of threats and everything from the dark web marketplaces and all the threat actors. So what are your strategies, or what kind of a playbook do you guys follow to mitigate those things, to manage the incident and things like that? And how is it different? Managing an incident happened inside your network and managing an incident which is happening outside of your network in a dark web. So how is it different?
So I think we are talking here about dark web, which is like today what we use is hardly 4%, that is surface web. But when it comes to dark web, it is very anonymous in the nature. So it's very difficult to to see what is happening over there. For financial institution is a prime target because they will be getting a lot of personal information as well as financial information, or even the key thing is their they are getting money out of that as well. So therefore it is a prime target for many of the attackers. So when it comes to any activities which are happening on the dark web, firstly we need to identify like how what is happening over the dark web, and for that matter internally some big financial institution, they have their own sort of dark web monitoring team, or they may hire for some solutions like dark web monitoring or brand protection solution, which help them to kind of identify some of the things which are happening for their organization on the dark web. That is one thing. When it comes to protocol about the incident response, so of course, yes, first we need to validate what sort of data we are looking at. We need to validate the information, how we got that particular intel, and we need to confirm whether that intel is correct or not. And once we have that, then we need to, of course, as a standard protocol, we need to invoke our incident response plan. Then simultaneously for financial institution, since it's highly regulated, we also need to involve the right stakeholders into our while the incident is happening. So legal, the risk or compliance team, to make sure that we are kind of reporting this particular incident to regulators, because that is one of the key requirement in many of the financial institutions. Even in India, I think we need to report it within 6 hours. If I talk about any other countries like where I work, Singapore, we need to report it within 1 hour. So that is one thing. And then apart from that, the normal incident response plays a role like containing the incident and recovering that. So there are big financial institutions, they can afford some sort of solutions, or they have some team. But many of the small financial institutions, they are mainly rely on, let's say, if somebody just kind of report them that there is something happening on the dark web, or there is a threat intel which is coming through regulatory authorities. And then based on that particular assessment, they are getting to know that, okay, there is something happening on the dark web related to their particular domain. So on the strategy point of view, of course, yeah, you have to keep eye on the dark web, and there needs to be your teammate, or you have that particular skills to get some sort of intels from dark web. Through that, you can able to kind of some sort of identify the incident and kind of recover from that particular incident. Yeah.
Great. So next question for you, Mr. Mahesh. And it's an interesting question given that, everybody is moving to cloud now, right? So do you feel dark web monitoring services also aids into the compliance requirement in a cloud environment? Like when we talk about the cloud environment, does these kind of services also helps you in managing some sort of compliances or to serve you better?
So if you look at it, the compliances are becoming more complicated today because every country, every region, if you are a globe, India is on the journey of digital transformation, offering it not only within the country but also outside the country. So we have seen in the first session, so India is becoming a global organization servicing to the global industries. So that means that the regulations are very complicated. Regulations are very complex, where regulations are becoming more stringent day by day. The penalties are increasing. If you are being hit by, if you are being compromised and it is impacting multiple countries, so then it becomes a more complicated thing. So when you look at the entire, any regulations which you look at it, your data protection, your privacy data, which is specifically driving the industries, all our industries, if you look at it, then it is becoming more complex that you need to protect your data not only inside. The traditional days of looking at putting a firewall inside your assets where you are hosting, whether it is in cloud or on premises, or those are all the days conducting internal VAPTs, external VAPTs and all. So today is a day where your data is not only lying here, data is getting compromised, getting into the area of outside your region, that is on the dark web. So compliance perspective, whether it is internal, external, you are liable for protecting that early visibility, taking action so that your impact is going to be less, is going to be most important. So from a regulation perspective, you take any regulations, protection of the customer, your customer, or any of the country's data, especially if we are dealing with any of the government agencies outside India or inside India, it becomes more stringent, or more you are on fire, right? So it becomes very important that you need to look at not only inside your environment, but also outside what is happening, outside view of your own data, your customer data, how you are compromised, so that the early indication will help you to mitigate or reduce the impact to your organization. So from a dark web perspective, any dark web monitoring, taking actions, timely action is very critical from a regulation perspective. You take any countries, any laws, everybody is becoming a stringent nowadays.
Very well said, sir. So, Mr. Kapil, since the thing or the kind of threat actors that you are monitoring on dark web, the hacktivist groups, the state-sponsored campaigns, and all, they are huge in number, right? So everybody is interested in other countries' data always, right? So how do you actually zero down on a particular threat actor, like the likability of the exploitation, or how you do a ROI for that particular incident?
Okay, so the process of identifying the threat vector and backing it up with the knowledge that it is coming from a particular organization event. So it requires a deep drill down from the broad spectrum scan down to the focusing onto the some amount of metadata or the information available, correlating it back to the information available from the surface web, all that kind of a thing. Now, then we try to use some sort of matrices to do this kind of thing. Now, we try to do it with the multiple partners, because there are multiple partners which are engaged into different some people are focused on the financial domain. They are now, with the health becoming a major issue, there are dark web scanning companies or the people who are making specific effort in going into the health domain data analysis itself. So we try to have a broader perspective, try to understand the things from multiple domains and try to combine them together. Now the interesting thing is what happens is we try to get into very specific matrices. However, on the paper initial, it sometimes looks very promising, and the initial data sheets or say they give you a very good results. I'll just take up. So we just engaged with somebody whose initial analysis was that we have done a 2 years review of all the threats, some 200 plus threats which have emerged, and we have a true positive rate of around 74% and a true negative rate of 71%, and with a precision and recall going somewhere around 90% and 70%. On paper, it looked very, very good. However, once we drilled deeper into it, we realized there were the basic indicators which they picked up. There were three. Was the for a specific entity, how many leaked credentials are there, how many hashed credentials are there, and how many pure email or data is available, which is neither encrypted or not, that kind of data. So there are three. They have weighted it down with a certain amount of percentages on that, and they are looking at a 2-year window, giving it a time relevance also, that something which is very recent probably give a weightage of 1, and every 6 months, if it's 6 months older, you reduce the weightage by around 50%. So good statistical model. Just to bring out, there's no AI ML involved into this. And probably we don't need AI/ML to do everything. Wherever if the good stats gives you a result, we should have good stats. So, but once we went deeper into and started analyzing this data, we realized that the true positive rates were on a different data set. True negative rates were on a very small data set which was different from the first one. Okay. And once we try to apply that system, actually the results were not, so theoretically it looked very good. On the application side, the results were not very promising. So we went into details with them, and so it's not that we have taken a product and it's not working out and it's not giving us, so we will stop. So we remain engaged with the company and try to improve upon it. So the 2-3 factors which very important came out of it. First was, they were trying to analyze the leaked data and calculate some kind of Z scores based on those 3 parameters which I said, and try to see whether this Z score is increasing. So if the Z score used to increase, they used to say that the likely threat onto your particular organization is increasing, you should take measures to stop the threat. So there we discussed with them. It was a very fundamental level discussion with them. We said, or I'll not say I said, because I led a team, so I have a team behind me which supports me all this kind of a thing. The fundamental discussion which went out is about the causality. I said, you are monitoring the data which is already released on the net. This data release is not causing the threat. If you're monitoring the data, that means the breach has already occurred. What you are now seeing is the symptoms of the disease. Okay, so yes, it tells you that so many credentials has probably already been leaked. Please revoke them. Try to find the data breach where it is happening, plug that gap. But it's not a predictive threat protection solution. Also, there are some nuances into it, like they have assumed that this data set will be normal, so you could carry out a Z score analysis, where we also had a discussion. So these were kind of technical discussions which you undertake, because these are very, very important. Stats-based systems can also give you good results if the modeling has been done right. So we are engaged with them, we are working with them, and things are slightly improving. Probably it's not for the thing and we are basically looking at the NIC and .gov domain kind of email and other thing which are, are they available on the dark web or not? Are we losing some of our government email IDs to the dark web? So that is the kind of threat we are looking, and this is the kind of matrices we are looking. Now, as for coming to ROI in our case is not finance. Our ROI in our case is more of the protection of the public assets or the sensitive material. So for us, ROI works like that.
Oh, it's a very interesting insight that you have given to us, Mr. Kapil. So, extending the same question to Beenu. Beenu, there are multiple sources, and we know that not every time information that comes on dark web is legit, right? So, how do you ensure the authenticity, or how do you actually validate such claims and everything?
I mean, the nature of intelligence, it's all based on probability to start with. There's no certainty. Naturally, when you are seeing the information which is floating around, uh, there are many different ways on how you can get to a conclusion that is likely to be a real or a fictitious case. Uh, I think the first one, which is pretty common, I think many of the organizations are already doing it, is they end up engaging with threat actors and trying to get some more understanding on, hey, what data are you guys are really claiming? Uh, very basic. Like I call always this like a tier zero approach. Often, threat actors may, in some cases, if not many cases, they end up creating fake data sets, and then the organization run around the circle to figure out this is real or fake, and end up there's a lot of pressures which are also generated by threat actors. So this is very common approach. Uh, the second one, which is like a tier one approach, I always call it, is where again threat researchers, but people who are specialized in running counterintelligence operations, who have been doing this thing for at least a decade, understand that the network on how threat actors are engaging and navigating, understanding the market prices, understanding the credibility scores of different uh, individuals out there. That what we have observed can actually produce a better yield in terms of and also reduces the time of validation, whether this is real or fake. It's all based on reputation and the credibility of threat actors. But for that to even happen, many organizations, both in the public and private sector, including OEM providers like us, we keep a track of threat actor activities to understand whether the previous claims have been proven to be legit or fake, for that matter. Uh, Intent is all about validation and how we can do it quickly because time is of the essence. Uh, and of course, last but not least, there are many cases where even the credible threat actors have been proven to have access to fake data. And many ransomware groups, for the matter, if you look at some of the reports published by the Express team themselves, there have been multiple incidents where threat actors like Lockbit, especially, one of the popular ransomware threat actor group, they publish that I breach into X organization, and then 3 days later they come back. Oh, sorry, this is not X; it's actually Y. Now imagine the amount of pain the organization X had to go through for the last 72 hours or so. So these things can happen. And I must say, there's a lot of noise. We, publicizing the dark web monitoring is interesting, exciting, but there's so much noise out there. In fact, you'll see end up a lot of resellers, affiliates, scammers. It's a whole chain of individuals who are ripping off even researchers for that matter. I think it all depends upon, as I always say this thing, threat intel in principle, I always call it, it's a dying industry. I think my opinion is all about uh, threat intel is converting it to, especially for cyber for that matter, it's all about next generation cyber infrastructure. It's all about deploying the infrastructure across everywhere on the internet, be it monitoring or scraping, being able to scanning the internet, deploying your bots, deploying your honeypots in all different places. It requires active collection of data sets at a scale which typically a lot of AI companies are doing now, and this is the only way on where you can start filtering out the noise and get those real signals. But as such, in my opinion, uh, this is no longer a simple job of just going to contact them on a Tor link and just say, hey, can you share what you have, and then you believe what they're saying. I think those days are gone past. There are more than 170 ransomware threat actor groups which are live right now, out of which 31 have been proven to have a higher credibility score compared to the others. And these numbers are fluctuating because these groups are actually changing a lot. A lot of them actually getting arrested, and they keep on changing their playbooks, their operations. It's a very dynamic state, unfortunately. So it's less about, it's becoming lesser about how good you are in negotiating or engaging these days. It's all about whether you have the historical data sets, or a rich repository where you can monitor the individual aliases or their activities on different channels, and then establish their, the TDPs, their reputation, the credibility. I think those are becoming a lot more, important in today's world. Uh, Otherwise, organizations are keep getting ripped off. I mean, people are end up paying like double ransomware attacks, triple ransomware attacks. There are, if you look at the last year ransomware victims, at least 50% of the victims have been ransomed more than once. So they pony up, they actually end up paying the ransom, and then 3 months later they get breach again, and they have to pay it again. So this is like a never-ending vicious cycle. In my opinion, and I've been on the other side as a cybersecurity professional for multiple larger organizations, do not pay. There's no way. There's no way, that once you end up even at slightest thought you guys decide to pay for it, they will come back. The history has taught us a very simple lesson. Don't trust the criminals. The criminals are always going to be criminal. Even if they let you go for this time, they will come back 2 months later. So having a robust governance framework, engaging with the government and the public and the private sector, and then just being open to admitting that, hey, this was something we missed out. I mean, the attack surface of many organizations in this room especially, I mean, nobody really knows what's out there for them. I mean, being in the CISO role myself in the past, I know, I cannot put my hand on my heart and say, I know everything about my organization. I know every asset, every box out there. It's just practically not possible. I mean, yes, you can keep on pouring money into it over and over, and then you still say, oh, I had a third party who deployed, a Docker on somewhere in the cloud which had access to my test data, which turned out to be real data, and now it's leaking information out there. And then these things are very common. I think it's just that, not just about realizing, but communicating that to the board effectively, that this is a journey. There is no such thing called absolute security. You can even put $1 billion budget into your CapEx or hundreds of millions of OpEx. There's still no guarantee. It's a process. Learn from mistakes. But more importantly, keep updating your control framework with the changing threat landscapes, which is where the government and the private sector can give you a lot more information on. That's just my opinion there.
No, thanks for this insight, Beenu. So since we touched upon this point of AI, right? So Mr. Mahesh, my next question to you is like how these new age tech companies are actually leveraging on automation, AI, in better managing their external attack surface, or how it is actually helping them in reducing the response cycle and everything.
So I've been in the CISO role for last 16 years, started in 2007. So I was always dependent on people to respond to any of the intelligence coming in from your SOC or dark web monitoring and all. The simple, if you look at the trend, normally the attackers are also smart. Normally they try and get these data out of your organization late in the evening on Friday. So they have around 72 or 48 hours to attack your surfaces. So we were always dependent on people, and I was never successful. So then the thought came in is we are good in as an industry, we are good in deploying the security solution which monitors, gives you alerts, we showcase these many attacks and all. There are few which get even controlled during the security solutions. So simple thing like somebody else's or an employee's user ID password has been leaked into a dark web, getting an alert, sending it to an individual saying that your ID has been compromised, can you change the password, or locking that ID and ensuring that a password and the next change log on happens is the first step to do it, right? So these are all the things which we have observed in the industry, that we are good in identifying, but we are not so good in responding to, or quickly responding and reducing the timeline for any attackers to use that and attack our organization. That's where the journey in the industry has started. Today, if you look at it, if I take my organization only, we have around 70% of our alerts which is coming in is been automated. So the simple integration points, simple integration with different security solutions, simple alerting mechanisms are the key factors. So these are all the ways. The automation is going to be a key. More and more you are dependent on people to respond. I'll hire a third party vendor who is going to be monitoring 24/7, responding it, going ahead and doing it. I'll give you an example, right? You get an alert from a dark web or from a SOC saying that it's a malicious IP trying to attack your surface, right? So, or they were already compromised it. What do you want to do? You have to go ahead and all your security solutions, go ahead and block that IP, right? So if you are dependent on people, at least it will take, if it is a Friday late evening, if you are working on Monday to Friday, so you need 48 hours to respond back. So if you bring in an automation platform, we have reduced this timeline from 48 hours SLA to 30 seconds, 40 seconds, because globally, and then your global organization, you have so many multiple security solution deployed, which is not unique in nature, right? You have X as a security solution in one organization, you acquired other, it's a Y. How do you bring in this resilience in the system where the automation is going to be a key? So if you want to be effectively control any of the attacks, automation is going to be a key. And that's where the industry is moving towards the SOAR, other technologies, but it can bring you 40, 50% of your automation. Still remains 30, 40. You have to be agile. You have agility in the process to consume that, bring in automation, different ways of automation processes to curtail that or mitigate that risk, because damage is already happened. Now what you can control is only the impact. If you have to control the impact, the only way to do it is to bring in the automation, less dependency on the people, you will be more effective. That's what we have observed as a situation, and now we are moving towards, organizations like us are moving towards more on the automation platform to ensure that we have a mechanism to curtail the impact.
Thank you for it. It's a very interesting insight for sure, right? So my next question to you, Mr. Balaji, right? We are talking a lot about dark web monitoring services, solutions, automation, and everything. But as a CISO, how do you have any metrics, or how do you actually manage the effectiveness of your dark web monitoring program, or what is your ROI, right? How you actually measure your ROI? Your ROI is definitely very different from the ROI that Mr. Kapil has mentioned. So in your sector, how do you actually do that?
So ROI in terms of monitoring the dark web or any incident related is very crucial. And to be frank, on financial sector, like in my current organization, if I'm handling, so we mainly do it in we manage it in quantitative measures, like the number of intels what we got, and whether the validity of that particular intel is one of the metrics. The number of such alerts and number of true positives, then number of takedowns what we have done from those particular alerts, and then in a qualitative things, whether the alert what we got for dark web monitoring, whether the validity of that particular alert, the quality of that particular alert, the whether the data is current or old, or whether it's a fictitious data. So some of those things we will consider, and mainly manage the ROI on that. So because we are into let's say lending and in card industry, so we mainly face incidents or the attacks like fraud or scamming related attacks. So in those cases, it's very important to identify some of these scamming pages or scamming websites, or even the some scamming which even people are doing on ground, like. So we need to kind of make sure that we are taking down, and we are doing that with the third party. And from that we are measuring our metrics as well. Yeah.
That's great. So, with this, my final question, right? We are just about to wrap this session up. My final question to all of you guys, right? So, what do you predict, like in your specific industry or in general, like how the threat landscape is going to change in coming, in less in next 2 years? And what role can the services, the external attack surface monitoring companies can, actually do that or help you in mitigating those issues? So, Beenu, if you want to start.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I mean, everybody's, I think, had a good understanding of what ChatGPT or OpenAI guys are doing. And I think this is just the tip of the iceberg as far as I'm seeing it. Uh, like if you go back 10 years ago, uh, implementing a complex, ML model used to be quite expensive, and it was accessible mostly to the government and maybe well-funded large organizations. But now it has been democratized. I mean, you pay $20, and now you have access to the vast, correlated telemetry, which can give you some very interesting responses. So what we are seeing already, and this is what I'm talking about, the current state, it's already being abused. Threat actors are using these technologies to actually create sophisticated mechanisms to conduct cyber attacks on the private as well as the public sector companies. One of the most recent one I came across was when one of the threat actors, using the information which GPTs were able to collect, which is largely coming from Bing or Microsoft search engine, they were able to create a very personalized phishing email with all the personal details, with all typical how a recruiter would try to pitch into a candidate on enticing them to click a document or a malicious link. That was just one of the simple yet powerful examples on how threat actors are rapidly adopting the same technologies which are made for everybody. And again, this is not something very new per se, because many of these state-sponsored attacks or sophisticated attacks on large resource organization that used to happen. But now we are seeing the use of AI even in the commoditized, attack, landscape today. And this is this is already out there. I think in next 2 years or 3 years, it's becoming more frequent. It's becoming more smarter and sophisticated. But more importantly, it's going to be creating a lot more adverse impact, especially for the regulators on how they can, kind of understand. Like this is the same situation when the dark web initially came out as a monitoring capability. What about the AI frameworks? How do we make sure that this is not being abused by the criminals? And those are the areas which I don't have an answer for today. I mean, you see wonderful examples on LinkedIn where people are talking about, hey, ChatGPT can actually write the code for me. It can review it. It can optimize it. But that's exactly what threat actors are doing today. We see these conversations. We intercept the conversations and we see that they're using the exact same way to create more obfuscations. They're trying to make the code more stealthy. That's just the beginning. I think the world is going to become a lot more eventful in the next 3 years, as far as I'm seeing it.
Addition to Beenu's point, in last 2 years there was one incident wherein attackers or these threat actors, they used deep fake, or they kind of first hacked the CEO's mobile, and after that they have kind of listen all the communications from his mobile, and they kind of feed that particular information into the deepfake software, and with that they was able to scam their accountant via telephonic, and they was able to scam more than $2.2 million. Apart from that, there are many other things, like the insider threats trend is also changing. There are many these threat actors. They are hiring many of the insider employees from the banks or healthcare organization, so that they can be the initial vector. They can able to install the malware on their system, or they are asking for Citrix access for them. Another threat trend is the employees are also getting kind of knowledgeable about the dark web, and they are directly going into dark web and selling internal critical information. So some of these trends are also kind of evolving, and we need to keep on eye as well. Yeah.
So Kapil, yeah.
Okay. So we have to look at this once from the top perspective. Always when the new technologies get released, the malicious actors are always able to adopt them faster, employ them with the ingenuity, and get benefit out of it. Always the responders have a challenge. I will tell you where the challenges lies. It's easy to create a script today by going to chat GPT and telling me I want to have this kind of a rootkit code generated for me. I wanted to launch it on a particular Linux platform with a given. It will not generate something which is new, but it will still generate whatever is currently, say, if the LLM was trained 2 years back, say 2021, it had data. So whatever was current up to that point, it will generate a script. You don't even need to go and now buy it from the dark web. It's easier to generate it. Now what happens from the security side? Now, from the security professional side, or the people who are trying to look at it from the top perspective, the dark web is generating tremendous amount of data. Small organizations, even those who are venturing into that, will scan the dark web, get the data, will only keep 1 year data, try to keep analyze that, get int out of it. The amount of data which is prevalent and which is further increasing is becoming more and more. The data is replicated again and again, and so many times it's duplicated that deduplication becomes a challenge. You have a same data in a different formats pervasive around all the thing. Now, once you want to apply a modern technology, say like ChatGPT, you can't apply it on that because this particular system has not been trained on that. To do that kind of a thing, probably you require to have a tremendous amount of resource and other things to train your own LLM models which are trained on that. Now that kind of a capacity and a capability, it's very difficult to come from small startups or small companies. This requires tremendous amount of effort. So where it is the, you should say disconnect is there. So probably can the international organizations can get into it, or the government can get into it. So those are the challenges which this particular field faces. So there's no easy solution. Yeah. Solutions technically can evolve, but they will require commitments both in terms of time and both in terms of finances.
For sure, for sure. Mr. Mahesh, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, so when you, there is a famous saying, it was a John Chamber, ex-CEO of Cisco, who said there exist only two type of organization. One who are been attacked, one who doesn't know that they are being attacked. So if you are on the other side of the story, thinking that we are very safe, we have put firewall, we have done everything and all, go ahead and explore the dark web as a solution, then you realize that you're also being exposed. So it's more than a technologically everybody is talking about. We need to be a perception which we carry We have so many solutions. We have so many good knowledge people who are protecting our infrastructure. We have subscribed to a lot of things and all. Please come out of that myth and understand that the hackers or the bad actors are more intelligent than you, right? So they know. What we don't know is what they are doing, right? We know the information, we know the data has been leaked, but what they know is what solutions which we are putting, how does they work. So we have to change the perception. We have to look at from a cyber security or the threat protection in a different way, that we're already being compromised. There is a lot of possibility that anything could have happened or may happen to us, even though we have all the solutions. More we think on those direction, more we will be innovative in putting the security controls. If we think that we are protected, will not improve. So bad actors will always grow in their attack surface. If we want to be competent with them, we need to think out of the box, out of the possibilities, anything. So from that perspective, we need to change our perception in looking the cybersecurity with the assumption that we are being attacked. There could be a possibility. How is that I can detect it? How I can mitigate those risks? That's what I wanted to say as a closure. Thank you.
I think there is one more interesting point I want to share here. I think the panelists over here are agreeing to the common theme here, which is it's always better to educate not just your internal staff, but also to the board on the importance of the cybersecurity investments. But things can go wrong for sure. You might end up facing a ransomware attack where people are threatening or extorting you. I think, in my humble opinion, disclosures are the best way to do it. Especially in the most recently, one of the ransomware group actually, when they attacked an organization in the States, and the organization refused to pay the ransom. Sure, that's not uncommon. And they were noticing the quarterly filings of that company. And what they realized, they did not make a disclosure. What they end up doing is they went up to SEC and reported that this company was breached. We did it, and they are not reporting it. So this is like can be seen as comical, but if you just see the extent on the extent by which these threat actors are going after the organization in terms of creating the pressure, I think there's a very less incentives now for the CXOs or the board to avoid disclosures. Disclosures are becoming more important because the threat actors are actually doing the job now. They are becoming like as a contributing party to the regulators in terms of who they are breaching and not paying them. So it's a very interesting shift. I think the whole point is, as sir mentioned, that the threat actors are smarter in certain aspects for sure. They understand that they can shake up the stock prices if they are successful and they're not getting what they want. I think the whole story revolves around, it's all about, you need to prepare yourself, you need to act if something is wrong. And if you end up getting breached, it's all about communicating and engaging, both internally and externally, and just repeating the cycle. I think that's what I would like to share.
Thanks so much, guys, for sharing all these valuable insights with us, right? Personally, to me, right, I already felt, more enlightened towards all these things, right? And, to conclude these things, this particular session is that, now we have to come out of that particular mindset that, monitoring external attack surface is, or, external exposure is just limited to monitoring phishing or things like that, just doing a brand monitoring or all these things, right? So it's now no more good to have thing. I think it's something which is a must to have now, right? And obviously for a longer run, you need either build up your good team or you need some good services who can be your eye on all these blind spots. So with this, I would like to open the forum for any questions. I urge you guys, if you have any questions or anything, please feel free to, yeah.
Hello. So this is better. Thank you very much. Very insightful panel discussion. Beenu, you mentioned about no matter what, we should not pay the ransomware. And last week, I think there was a kind of agreement between 40 countries that they would not be paying. How is the industry seeing this agreement between the governments of the world, right? The 40 governments have agreed that we are not paying. But do you think this is like practical and doable or avoidable?
I mean, as a cybersecurity professionals, I had my own doubts, especially I think 2 years ago, when there was a bit of lack of awareness on the tactics and the techniques of these different ransomware as a service operators. Uh, I think that the whole point centers around, even if you end up paying, does that stop the chain reaction? And what the history has taught the regulators as well as the businesses is that even if you end up paying, you may not end up getting your data decrypted. You might still get double extortion. There are organizations who have got triple extortion. They just keep coming back because it's like a natural tendency. When somebody pays you, then you tend to go back to them, to the same hands who are feeding you. And I think a lot of the governments or the regulators have done an amazing job, especially when in terms of when the transactions are going through the let's say Bitcoin, or those specific cryptocurrencies, where they can even correlate that how these funds are now contributing to a more severe adversarial activities towards the entire sector, if not the entire nation. And hence why I think the businesses are taking a step back that, hey, I don't have any incentive. Even if I pay up, does that mean that this is going to stop from happening? The answer is no. And even if I take a call that I'm going to pay, this might actually have an adverse impact on the entire industry because these people are getting paid, they are getting more resource, they are hiring more people. This is like a chain reaction. To give you some perspective, one of the groups whose name is Revel, partially dismantled now, but back 2 years ago, they made more than $100 million in a year. And they were very specific that they wanted to target manufacturing, IT, ITES, healthcare. They know exactly the persona who they want to go after. And they were bragging about, and they said, what we are sharing, or the list of the organization who we have disclosed that they were ransomware breach, that was less than 5% of what the reality was. So tens of thousands of organizations have been breached. To give you some perspective, for the last quarter alone, every day, 2 companies have faced the breach because of ransomware attack. But disclosures are still not happening. Some people are still choosing to pay up. I think those people will eventually realize that this is not worth it. So to your question, sir, I think this is the right call as far as we are seeing it. Giving money to criminals is not gonna end up going into good hands anyway. Most of them end up doing all illicit activities, not just cyber related, but even the drug trafficking, all the different malicious activities are also being supported by these exchanges. And I'm pretty appreciative of the initiatives which the countries are taking. It's a high time that you take a call. That's the way I think is the right way forward.
Hi, my name is Sameer Gemawat, and I'm the co-founder of CyberNow based in Pune. We are trying to make security awareness, more entertaining for everyone. And my question is specifically to Kapilji. First of all, thank you for your services. Now, I am concerned. I'm like seriously paranoid about data privacy. And recently, it was in the news that 88 crore records of Aadhaar data has been leaked and is available in the dark web. Now, to Beenu's point as well, like, what is the authenticity? And in India, media goes into a frenzy. First, it was reported that it was 85 million records, which is like, not more than like a crore. But then it was mentioned that 85 or 88 crore records were leaked. Okay, now obviously the threat actors can use this data to create like a lot of cybercrime and lot of like chaos in the society. But there was no official statement, and this is a matter of like national data integrity, right? So like what do you feel, or what do you think like should be done at a national level?
Okay, so at the national level, the concerns about the data privacy and especially the protection of the Aadhaar and related things is a very, very sensitive issue. Okay. I can assure you the way Aadhaar is structured, or it has been praised, it is not possible. Even if the data is federated, it is structured in a fashion, even if you compromise one data center, the complete information or the information will not be. So the basic principles and how to protect the data, it is one of the topmost, I'll say, one of the best protected data in the world. It's not easy to breach. Now, how much exactly that has happened, frankly, I have not analyzed that, so I'll not be able to comment exactly what's the authenticity, how much data has gone out. We also read into the newspapers, and but the information looked slightly, I said, generally creating a more of a news rather than the actuals. So it's not that easy that much data has gone out, and it is not, because where it has gone out, the further proliferation or the further activities on those fronts, we didn't monitor, somebody else did it. The further activity from there, where not much of the activity was seen around those actors. In the oldest way to track I'll say the crime or the other things is follow the money. So if the money trails are not emerging or converging on those threat actors which claim, we assume that the threat was more or less or a eyewash kind of a thing.
Anybody else with a question?
Am I audible? Yeah. So hi, this is Priyanka Sundar from Mumbai. I had a basic question. The start of the session, there was a discussion on how countries and organizations are coming towards having a single converging policy guideline framework from where it was more jurisdiction or industry specific. The more, because see, the basic bottom line is have your data secure. Whether it's in digital format or in physical format, in any industry, your customers are the same. They're humans. Your clients are the same. They're again humans. Even your employees are the same. So it's just about protecting data. That's the bottom line. The more layers of defense you have, the more protection you have. But is there a way to have a converging policy framework guideline? I think we are already going on having multiple frameworks from where we started, a few decades back. We are amending, we are enhancing, and having a more robust framework guideline now. But isn't it required to be aligned across borders as well, so that it's easier to nab the criminals? Because most of what is there in the digital space is all available permanently and not secure mostly. So even in security terms, we can't say we are secure, because there's a simple line says, less is more. Typically, they say keep security simple so that it gives you the benefit. But then in security, frankly, less is not more. You need to be secure from all aspects. So where do you think we are heading with multiple emerging technologies coming in? how are we designing our framework so that it meets all industry requirements, and including the upcoming, chat GPT and your AI ML driven security solutions.
So your question was directed to the entire panel or to an individual? Entire panel. So, yeah.
So I may not be able to comment on the government segment, but convergence of vendors is already happening. So if you look at Microsoft or any of those Cisco's, they were all holding the cyber security data on their own, right? Today, there is a convergence is happening without even having a policies or governance or framework which has been established. Because the reason is more you share, more you are going to be more effective. The products which has been convergent is evolving as the best practice, best products in the industry. That's where the major vendors are moving towards the convergence. Second, it's a on the its own my personal opinion because I don't hold any of the government hat. So if you look at the countries which are major countries, right today, if you look at it, any bad actors are taking the infrastructure from the countries where the governance or the laws are weak. So establishing a global framework or this is going to be a time consuming exercise, or it is going to be a long term journey or long days to come, because again they have their own plus and minuses, the investments which is happening on those countries, uh, the revenues are coming from those. Even in India, right, there are places where the cyber crimes are at very high. The reason is that the culture, the financial situation of the country and all, those are all the factors which is driving towards that. So concluding, the vendors, the convergence on intelligence, threat intelligence at the OEM levels or vendors are already happening, but at the country level, it's going to take time. That's my opinion.
So my opinion in this whole topic is industries will find ways and means to work each other, but more important to satisfy each other's requirement. You have ISO, SOC 2, there's so many frameworks out there which are enabling organizations to able to work each other, even trans-border transactions, which satisfy their own business objectives. But when you touch the part of cross-border framework creation between countries, highly unlikely it's going to happen. Every nation, they want to protect their own interest. I mean, if you're thinking about having a United Nations who is kind of managing the cybersecurity for the world, highly unlikely. It's all biases. I mean, there are powerful nations who wants to have a control on how the frameworks are laid out, and they want to control it. It's all about managing the controls from a geopolitical standpoint. So, to your question, are the countries able to collaborate to create a joint framework for the data security and threat actor information exchange? Latter is already happening. Five nations and some other parties have already collaborated to, pin down those cyber criminals. Multiple arrests are happening already, but they're focused on the criminals. When it comes to the data security framework, every region have their own vested interest. Like GDPR, for an example, has specific requirements. If you are taking the European citizens' data outside, even in the US, then there's a very specific, conditions they have to follow. Not so much vice versa if you look at that way. So it's all about, it's all in, their own vested interests. And I always say this thing, it requires industries or OEMs will always figure out a way to do the transactions between each other. But for the government, when it comes to data security or common data security frameworks, I think it's going to be a bit more challenging.
In fact, at the control level for the end organizations, it is already happening. So nowadays people are going with UCF kind of a thing, like a unified compliance framework. Through a single framework, they can manage all kind of compliances to which they have to abide to. CIS benchmarks, cloud things, ISO, GDPR, single framework to manage all the compliances. This is already happening, right? So yeah, so with that, actually we have exceeded our time. Any more questions? So there are a lot of questions. So maybe, after the session, we can, we are here all day.
Sure.
You can always engage with the panelists, right? And, but yeah, thanks for, being such a lovely audience. I hope all of you have a amazing rest of the day. Thank you so much. And thank you, panelists, for sharing all this valuable intel.
Sure. Thank you so much, sir. Now here is a small token of love and appreciation from the CyberLink. I would like to request Augustine Kurian sir to kindly come on stage and present the certificate to our panelists. First one, we'll start with Mr. Kiran Balsekar sir. Sorry. Just a minute. First, we'll begin with Balaji Kapsikar sir, Head of Technology and Cyber Risk Funding Society, Singapore. Here is the certificate, and I request Augustine sir to kindly present the certificate. Can we have a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Mr. Balaji Kapsikar sir. And here, the next certificate is for Mr. Beenu Arora, co-founder and CEO of Cyber Inc. जी हाँ, जोरदार तालियां बजती रहें. Next is Colonel Kapil Jaiswal sir, Director Research Integrated Headquarter in Ministry of Defence and Government of India. Can we have a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen? Next is for Dr. Mahesh Juttiyavar sir, Global CIO Master. And the next one is for our moderator, Mr. Ankit Sharma, Senior Director Solution Engineering, Cyber Inc. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.